Hello and welcome to Low Code in 30. My name is Simon Black and I'm a platform evangelist here at Mendix. In today's Low Code in 30, we'll be leveraging IoT to improve decision making. In today's webinar, we'll first take a look at the Low Code in 30s that you might have missed previously. We'll take a look at Mendix as a low code platform. We'll then address what is IoT and the use cases that can be built using IoT platforms, and the difference between those different types of IoT, whether they're industrial IoT or whether they're traditional IoT. And finally, we'll showcase a demo of the Mendix platform, leveraging AWS IoT and the Siemens MindSphere platform. If this is your first time joining us for Low Code in 30, then welcome. But these Low Code in 30s have been running over the last few months, and we've covered a range of topics. All of these can be found on the mendix.com/demo section or on our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe so you can get all the latest updates and information about the Mendix platform. For those of you that are new to Mendix, I just want to give you a high-level overview of what the Mendix platform is. The Mendix platform is really trying to incorporate all types of makers within your organization. And when we talk about a maker could be someone that's from the business building a spreadsheet through to a traditional developer who's building applications using code. We allow them to collaborate and develop together using our platform. And we have different IDEs to support those different types of developers. We have the Mendix Studio focused at our traditional business developers. And we have the Mendix Studio Pro focused at our developers in our organization who might want to write code and extensions and integration possibilities. And by combining both of these two types of developers and being able to collaborate with both the business and IT, we're able to build applications 6 to 10 times faster than you would do traditionally using traditional code. And if you want more information on Mendix, then you can check out one of our previous webinars where we go into more detail about how the platform addresses this development process. If we take a look at IoT, IoT has been on a tremendous growth over the last few years, and it's a topic that's very close to my heart. I've covered a number of webinars focusing on Mendix and IoT, and back in 2017 when I first did my first IoT webinar, IoT was more of a buzzword. People were thinking about using IoT and were starting to experiment with what the possibilities could be when adopting IoT. But over the last few years, we've seen this experimentation come into realization. And people are building their core capabilities around Internet of Things and building it so that they can compete against competitors and allowing them to make smarter decisions within their organization. And this is shown by the growth in IoT in terms of the numbers. We've seen this year 26 billion devices being connected up to the IoT, and this is expected to grow to 75 billion connected devices by 2025. And everything from your healthcare provider through to your car will be connected into the Internet of Things. It's therefore important that you adopt this critical capability and build new experiences for your customers utilizing this data. And I just want to highlight 4 customer use cases here. These are all applications built using the Mendix platform that leverage IoT to enable them to compete and enable them to bring new offerings to the market. The first one is Hortilux. And Hortilux is a light bulb company that provide light bulbs to greenhouses. And what they saw in the market was that they were being outcompeted and outsold by cheaper Chinese brands. So in order to enable them to differentiate from their competitors, they built this platform on Mendix that leverages AWS IoT to track the performance of those light bulbs. And if a light bulb is going down in performance, they can get early warnings and notifications and allow them to then change those light bulbs within the greenhouse. So being able to give added value to their customers rather than just providing the light bulbs itself. We then have Lift Insight, who utilize IoT to track the performance of their lifts and enable them to predict when they need to actually perform maintenance. So they use the data from the IoT platform along with machine learning to allow them to create early warnings and predictions for certain maintenance, so they can send their engineers to those lifts and fix them before the issue occurs. We then have Octo, and Octo have created their organization around being able to perform analytics on how a building is currently performing, or an office, and now enabling their customers to get insights into how much occupancy they have, how much temperature is being used or energy being used within each of the rooms, enable them to get insights and information. So they provide that full stack, everything from the sensors up to the experience layer built in Mendix, so that their customers can get really good insights into how a building or an office is currently performing, enabling them to build smarter decisions into their organizations. And finally, we have Antel. And Antel primarily work with pharmaceutical customers. And pharmaceutical customers often want to be able to track and trace certain transportation of their products, whether that be a drug or a device. Often these need to be transported to the consumer in certain conditions. They might be needed to transport in certain temperature, they might have certain light conditions, or certain movement conditions that need to be adhered to make sure that that drug is as effective as possible. So by utilising IoT information and sensors on those particular devices, they're able to see this information and alert certain users in this Mendix dashboard so that they can go and check out that particular item when it's not been transported good, and also take it off the shelves if required, if it's not been stored at the right temperature. So these are just 4 use cases of Mendix customers utilising IoT. But there's a huge amount of opportunity for many more customers to leverage IoT and the data that you get from being able to create those experiences on top of an IoT platform. But in order to create these experiences, you need a number of layers. First of all, you need a cloud infrastructure that's able to scale. You need to then build a platform as a service on top of that. So something like a Cloud Foundry or Kubernetes, so that you can scale the number of instances and the number of environments that are running on that cloud infrastructure. You need a software as a service solution that provides you with these capabilities to be able to scale and add those applications. And those software solutions often integrate to app services, whether that be IoT services or whether that be machine learning services on top of those platform as services. And if we look from the bottom up, we often need certain things. We need to monitor devices, whether it be a phone, whether it be a computer, or whether it be a fridge freezer, for instance. And those things often communicate with many different protocols, and that data needs to be ingested and stored somewhere. This is where an ingestion layer will take those particular things, allow you to communicate with them proficiently, and be able to then have those within your cloud infrastructure. But to utilize all these layers, it's very difficult in a traditional platform and a traditional coding languages. And that's where low code comes in. Low code makes it much easier for you to integrate into each of these layers and be able to provide those experiences that really make it beneficial to use an IoT platform. And when we talk about IoT, often people are very confused about what IoT and what IoT means. And over the last few years, there's been an emergence in 2 types of IoT. We see on the left-hand side industrial IoT, which is really focused at smart cities, transportation, heavy machinery, as well as trying to improve your automation within your manufacturing process in factories and healthcare. And on the right-hand side, we have consumer IoT, which is looking at home automation, being able to look at wearable devices and phones and TVs and how that data can be utilized within a platform. And all of these need to go into a cloud solution, so you can monitor those, you can make smart decisions upon those, whether that be AWS, MindSphere, Azure, or whether you want to use a broker like Mosquito for your communication between those devices. So last year, Mendix was acquired by Siemens. And one of the reasons we were acquired was because we can rapidly create applications that utilize IoT data. And one of the platforms that Siemens offers is MindSphere. And MindSphere is the cloud-based open IoT operating system, allowing you to connect into any data, whether that be from a sensor, a device, or any other system. It allows you to consume that and store that within the MindSphere platform. But you need to be able to create experiences and applications on top of the MindSphere platform. So this is why Mendix and Siemens work together to be able to build an integration, first of all, so that you can deploy your applications and leverage the single sign-on services, the MindSphere APIs, and create digital twin experiences on top of those. So really focused at that industrial IoT space, being able to monitor actual physical products out in the market and be able to then get insights and change the product in your PLM software. So low code for IoT makes it much easier for you to be able to drag and drop and build those experiences, leveraging that data from the MindSphere platform. And it allows you to collaborate much more with your IT and OT communities, allowing you to unleash the talent that's available within your OT talent pool to build applications 6 to 10 times faster than traditional development. So let's take a look at how we can leverage the Mendix platform to utilize IoT. First of all, we'll take a look at how we can use AWS IoT, and then we'll take a look at how we can deploy and utilize data from the Siemens MindSphere platform. In this demonstration, we'll take a look at how we can extend an existing application built on the Mendix platform. This particular application was built in our previous Low Code in 30. In those Low Code in 30s, my colleague Jeffrey Goldberg showcased how we could improve this emergency services application by leveraging conversational platforms to enhance our UX and also deliver AI and cognitive services with ease. In those two webinars, Jeff showed how we could leverage messaging bots like Slack and WhatsApp to be able to engage with our customers. And also in the AI and cognitive services one, he looked at how we could utilize image recognition to detect certain incidents. So whether that incident be a cat up a tree or whether it be a car accident. We want to take this one step further. We want to be able to extend this application and leverage IoT data so we can make smarter decisions. This particular application has been hooked up to a number of graphs here so that we can see temperature, carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide from certain buildings. Currently, this application isn't hooked up to any IoT service, so we need to be able to hook into that data and make certain decisions around it. We have already an application that is sending data to an IoT service, and in this case we're using the AWS IoT service. AWS IoT is a very popular platform for really experimenting and building applications very quickly on top of IoT platforms. It allows you to monitor connections and inbound and outbound activity. It allows you to onboard devices and functionality very easily, as well as manage things which are essentially representations of certain devices. You might have multiple devices that belong to a particular thing, and a thing always has a certain type, which essentially describes what the thing does or doesn't do. Currently, we have an application that is submitting this data every few seconds, and it's publishing that data to the AWS IoT service. And if we want to view that data, we can simply subscribe to that information using this test harness here within the AWS IoT service. In this case, we're using AWS MQTT, and MQTT is a very lightweight protocol for testing and integrating into data. It enables you to very quickly send data from IoT devices, but also receive it as well. By subscribing to a topic, we can see all of the information that is published to this topic. And they are the two operations when working with MQTT. You subscribe, aka listen to data, and publish, aka push data to the cloud. And as you can see here, we're getting live streams of data now from our IoT device. And if we want to use this data within the Mendix platform, we need to be able to map this in and be able to use it within our entities. To do so, we can actually export this definition here so that we can start to use this within our application and map it into data within our app. So if we copy this payload, we can then use this within our development environment. So if I switch over into Mendix Studio Pro, this is where we can build out the experience for those applications. We can build out the pages, so what the user sees within the application, whether it be a overview, a dashboard, a grid, and so on. We can drag and drop these components onto here. We can also build out logic within the platform. And in order to get the data from the AWS IoT service, we need to subscribe to that data using our MQTT connector. So you can see here we have our connector with a number of properties set. And this is currently utilizing the AWS connector that's available on our App Store. And our App Store is our component library. It allows you to extend both on the back end with connectors and APIs, as well as widgets and themes for your front end extensions. And you can download these and reuse these across your application to allow you to accelerate that development process. Within the MQTT subscribe options, we have the option to parse the message that we get back from the MQTT service. If we click show, we can go into that flow and see we have two parameters, a topic and a payload. To use the payload data, we need to map that into our application, and that's very easy to do using JSON structures and JSON mappers. We can paste the data here, format it, and refresh, and it will automatically pick up the data items. Next thing we need to do is need to map that data into our application so we can use it. If we create an import mapping, we can select the structure we've just created. We can check elements that we do or don't want, and then map that against data from our domain model. If the names are matching automatically, then they will match there. Otherwise, it will create new ones for us. If we go back to the process flow, we can now import that data and start to use it within our application. We select import mapping. We can select the data we want to import and the mapping we want to use, which is the one we've just created. We can choose to save it and also store it in a variable. The next thing we need to do is update our dashboard. We want to be able to see the information that we get back from our API. Once we've got the fire alarm details from the IoT service, we want to make some decisions around it. And using an exclusive split here, we can make some decisions around our temperature data. So if the temperature is going to go above 60 degrees, then we can assume that this is potentially an opportunity for a fire. So 60 degrees Celsius is quite high, so we could automatically predict that there is a potential for a fire. If there is, it will go down this true line. Otherwise, it will go down the false line, which we'll draw in a second. We're going to create a new emergency event based on the data we get back from the service. So we're going to say, we predict this building is going to catch on fire. We can say what type of emergency it is. In this case, it's going to be a fire. And then we just need to deal with the false line. And the false line, we're not going to do anything. We're going to ignore that information. So now we've connected up this subscribe button to the overview. We just need to make sure that this data updates. So I'm going to add on a snippet here to make sure our dashboard always refreshes and make sure it always has the latest data. The final thing we need to do is now run this. We need to run this locally so we can see that information and make sure we're getting all of that data from the IoT service. So very quickly we've been able to create a mapping based on the data we're getting from our IoT service in AWS. We've been able to then create some logic and some decisions in a Micflow. And now we're rerunning this application so we can view it in our browser. So if we go back to the Mendix dashboard here and we hit refresh, we'll be able to see the information starting to come into our platform. We can see the temperature, the humidity, and also the carbon monoxide levels. But in order to get that data, we need to subscribe to it. If we're not subscribed, we won't receive any information into this dashboard. So now that we've subscribed, we should now start to get events into our application. And you can see here we're starting to get new data for our carbon dioxide, temperature, and also our carbon monoxide. We can see those values increase over time. So we're increasing the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, which is never good. It's a clear sign of a fire. But we've added the rule in for the temperature. So if we increase that above 60, let's go to 80 degrees, we will see then that we'll get a new alert into our application. Here we are. So we predict that this building is going to catch fire. And we can see the level at which it's predicted that it's going to go to as well. So very quickly in the last 10 minutes, we've been able to show you how we can extend an existing application for emergency services, and we can make smarter, intelligent decisions using IoT and information from AWS IoT. In our second demonstration, we'll take a look at the Siemens MindSphere platform and how Mendix applications can be deployed onto the platform and leverage data that is stored there. So we're logged into the MindSphere platform here, and we can see here we have a number of tiles. These tiles allow us to manage assets, also applications, and also single sign-on into applications built in Mendix. If we go into the Asset Manager, this is where we can configure certain data, assets and devices that we're actually going to monitor. In this case, we want to monitor a pump, and we can see here we've got some details and a photo. We can assign a particular asset to a type, allowing us to monitor multiple assets against a particular type. And then we have aspects, and aspects are what we're going to measure. These might have multiple attributes and assigned to particular assets. So in this case, we're monitoring for the pump, we're monitoring current, the motor current, pressure in, and also pressure out. Once we set up the assets, we then need to be able to configure the applications that are going to leverage that data. And to do so, we can use the developer cockpit here to set up new applications and new credentials, which we can then use within our Mendix applications. These credentials allow us to connect into the MindSphere data, but also use the single sign-on service. We can add configurations in here as well to actually customize our application, such as environment variables or operations and information that we need particularly to this environment. If we go back to the dashboard, we can see that we've already provisioned an example application. The pump asset example is an app that's available on the Mendix App Store. You can download this and configure this to get an idea as to how to develop an application on top of MindSphere and leverage the data. If we click on Go to Assets, we can see here we have a number of data that is already available with this application. We can see current, pressure in and also pressure out of our particular pump. And we can create this data using example flow. And it shows you how to put data into MindSphere, but also read data from it as well. As I mentioned, this particular example is available on the Mendix App Store. From here, you can search for certain MindSphere components, which allow you to accelerate your development. Things like Asset Manager Connector, Single Sign-On Service, theming packages, as well as full applications like the pump asset example. And we'll be adding more and more examples to this App Store over the next coming months. So if you need some guidance and some documentation as to how to set up and provision your own application, you can go to the docs.mendix.com and search for MindSphere. And there's a whole set of guidance as to how to set up this particular application and also how to set up your application for deployment and configuration for certain users and also certain data within your application. So it's a really helpful guide, and I'd definitely advise you going through this to start building your first application. So let's take a look at what that application entails and what you get from the pump asset example. If we switch over to the Mendix Studio Pro, we can see here that it comes with some example mic flows where we can perform logic to authenticate with the MindSphere platform using tokens, and we can then call certain REST APIs that are available via the MindSphere API. And in this case, we're putting some data into the time series overview. This allows us to authenticate and send data to that particular series. But we might also want to retrieve that data as well, and there's example calls for doing that. It also has some example pages to show you how to build out things like graphs and charting to showcase information that is coming live from the actual IoT devices. And once you're happy with this application, you can then build a package for it and then deploy it using the command line for Cloud Foundry. Simply by logging in and giving it the actual package, it will build you the application, deploy it into the MindSphere platform, and allow you to run that and use it within your environment. So in the last 30 minutes or so, we've been able to show you how to build an application on AWS IoT. We've also shown you how to build an example application using MindSphere platform and Mendix, and giving you an overview as to what the IoT landscape looks like and how Mendix can really support that landscape. So I hope you've enjoyed this particular webinar, and I hope to see you at our next webinar. Our next one will be next month, and we'll be focusing on multi-experience development and how Mendix can build applications that cross multiple experiences. So we'll now move on to the question and answer section.